All right, in this explainer, we're going to go on a pretty wild journey. We're starting with our earliest ancestors and ending up right in the middle of your own mind. Because we are going to unpack the surprising and kind of epic origin story of that voice you're hearing in your head right now.
Yeah, you know exactly what I'm talking about, right? That voice, the one that plans your day, worries about tomorrow, and basically narrates your entire life. It feels like it's just always been there. But have you ever actually stopped and thought, wait a minute, where did this thing come from? Well, let's find out.
So to get to the bottom of this, we have to rewind the clock. I mean, way back. We're talking millions of years ago, long before a single word was ever spoken. Something really important was happening, a kind of silent awakening. The stage was being set. And it all happened in this kind of evolutionary cascade, one thing leading directly to the next. So first, our ancestors stood up on 2 feet. What does that do? It frees up the hands. And with free hands, you can start making things, which leads to tool use. But here's the kicker. Making tools, really making them, requires a whole new kind of thinking. And that new demand on the brain, plus getting better food from hunting, is what fueled this massive expansion of our brains.
This new kind of thinking has a name, of course. It's called abstract thought. And this is so crucial. It's not just about banging rocks together hoping for the best. No, it's about looking at a raw stone and imagining, actually seeing in your mind the finished acts it's going to become. You're holding the future in your hand. I mean, for our ancestors, this was an absolutely massive cognitive leap.
Okay, so now we've got these early humans with these increasingly rich, complex inner worlds. But that creates a whole new problem, right? How do you share all those brilliant ideas? How do you work together to hunt something big or warn someone about a danger they can't see? You have to find a way to connect those minds.
And to make that happen, evolution made an incredible trade-off. A huge gamble, really. Our larynx, our voice box, actually dropped lower in our throats compared to other primates. The reward for this was massive. Suddenly, we could produce this huge range of distinct sounds you need for complex speech. But the risk? Oh, it was also massive. It made us way more likely to choke on our food. The only reason a trait that dangerous would stick around is if speech was absolutely essential for survival.
Now, of course, it wasn't just about the plumbing in our throats. All the pieces had to fall into place. You needed the right genetic foundation, like the FOXP2 gene, which is linked to the fine motor control you need to form words. And language itself had to evolve, right? It had to go from just simple grunts to symbolic sounds where a specific noise always means, say, lion. But the final incredible leap that made us human, that was syntax. That was grammar.
And this is why syntax was a total game changer. It's the instruction manual that lets us string words together to share really complex life-or-death information. It's the difference between just yelling, lion, water, which is, still pretty useful, and being able to form a strategic plan like, the lion is by the water, so we should hunt over the hill. That's not just a warning, that's coordination. That's the tool that makes real cooperation possible.
So all of this leads to this really powerful idea, a feedback loop. Just think of it like this. The brain is the hardware and language is the software. They started upgrading each other. A hardware upgrade like a bigger brain lets you have more complex thoughts. That creates pressure for a software upgrade, a more sophisticated language to express those thoughts. But then, that better software lets you think and cooperate in even more complex ways, which in turn pushes for even better hardware. It's this amazing upward spiral.
So this ancient cycle, this incredible process of coevolution between our brains and our language, this whole hardware meets software story that's been running for millions of years, it has led directly to this very moment. Which brings up a really interesting question. Where exactly is that super advanced software running right now?
Well, it's running as that voice inside your head, your inner monologue, that constant chatter. It isn't some random glitch. It is the direct, modern-day result of this entire evolutionary saga. It's your own personal, highly evolved software.
The best theory we have for this comes from a psychologist named Lev Vygotsky, and he called it internalized speech. And it's actually pretty simple when you think about it. You ever see a little kid trying to solve a puzzle? They talk themselves through it out loud, right? Okay, the blue piece goes here. Vygotsky's idea is that as we get older, that private speech doesn't just disappear. It just turns inward. It becomes our inner monologue.
So what is this internal software even for? Well, pretty much everything. It's what takes all those messy, random thoughts and organizes them into an actual plan. It's what lets you run simulations of future conversations so you can practice what you're going to say. And it's what keeps you on task. That little voice that says, okay, stop scrolling, get back to work. It's basically your brain's project manager.
And on a brain level, this is just fascinating. When you're thinking in words, your brain is running a full-blown speech simulation. You've got Broca's area, which is busy formulating the words. Then you have Wernicke's area, which is hearing and making sense of those words. Your brain is doing literally everything it would do if you were speaking out loud. It just cuts the signal before it gets to your mouth. It's like hitting mute at the very last millisecond.
Okay, so we've gone from ancient hominids chipping away at stones all the way to the individual neurons firing inside your own skull. But for this last part, let's zoom all the way out. Let's look at this from a much bigger, more profound angle. What if this little voice in your head connects you to, well, everything?
From this perspective, you could see our whole story a little differently. Maybe the universe itself was slowly developing an organ capable of observing and understanding itself, and that organ is the human mind. It's the idea that through language, the universe, in a way, found its own voice. Through us, it was finally able to name the stars, question its own existence, and become conscious.
And that's the incredible paradox, isn't it? That voice in your head, the one that's probably thinking about what to have for dinner or worrying about a deadline, that same voice is also a tiny echo of this cosmic process. It's how this vast, unimaginable, infinite universe becomes something deeply personal, something intimate, happening inside you right now.
So, if you look at it this way, your thoughts aren't just yours alone. They're part of a much larger cosmic conversation. In that quiet space inside your mind, the universal and the personal are the same thing. This symbol, Ikankar, stands for that very idea, the oneness of all creation. It's just something to think about the next time you hear that voice in your head.